Let's work a little bit more on identifying the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. Now remind yourself from the last lesson video, parallel lines have the same slopes. So if one line has a slope of 2, a parallel line to it will also have a slope of 2. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So that means they have opposite signs. So if one's positive, the other one's negative, or vice versa. And they have reciprocal slopes. So reciprocal means the fraction, the top and the bottom number just get switched. So for example, if the slope of one line is 5/4, a line perpendicular to it will be -4/5. Opposite sign, and we flip the numbers. Now one thing to keep in mind, the y-intercepts are not significant in parallel and perpendicular lines. In other words, I don't really care what the y-intercepts are when my lines are parallel and perpendicular, because it doesn't matter where they cross the y-axis, they're still going to be parallel somewhere, and they're still going to cross each other when they're perpendicular somewhere. And it doesn't matter where those lines fall on the y-intercept. Okay, so let's practice a little bit with parallel lines first. We want to find the line, or the slope of the line that's parallel to these lines given. So line A has a slope of 6. So what's the slope of a line that's parallel to A? Well, that would also be 6. Line X has a slope of 1/2. So what's the slope of a line that's parallel to line X? Well, the slope of a line parallel to it would also have a slope of 1/2. Number 3 says line M is y equals -2x plus 5. In this equation, what number represents the slope? This one does right here. This is the represents M, and M is the slope. So if line M is y equals -2x plus 5, a line parallel to it will have a slope of -2 as well. Now how about perpendicular lines? We want to find the slope of lines that are perpendicular to the following. Line A has a slope of 2/9. So what's the slope of a line that's perpendicular to this? Well, remember we have to flip the top and bottom, so find the reciprocal, and then change the sign. So it's positive, so I'm going to make it negative, and then I'm going to flip the 9 and the 2. So slope of a line that's perpendicular to line A will be -9/2. Okay, line X has a slope of 4. What's the slope of a line that is perpendicular to this one? Well, remember we have to change the sign from it's positive, so it's going to be negative, and then we have to flip the numbers in the fraction. Well, 4 isn't a fraction, so how do I make it a fraction? I write it over 1, right? 4/1 doesn't change the value, it just makes it look like a fraction. So if I want to find the reciprocal of this, I flip a 1 and a 4. So it now becomes -1/4. So the slope -1/4 is parallel to the slope of 4. Finally, line M is y equals -5x plus 10. What number here represents the slope? The -5. So I need to find the opposite reciprocal to -5. So it's going to be positive, and then I need to flip the numbers of the fraction. -5 isn't a fraction, so I make it a fraction by putting it over 1, and then I flip these numbers. So instead of 5/1, it's going to be 1/5. And it was negative, so now it's positive. So this is the slope of a line that's perpendicular to line M. Now let's move on to the last lesson video for one last way to identify slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines.